Alright, sorry about that. I believe I stopped on 3 of the 4 things. Number 3 was how far has the victim fallen in life because of the targeting of his or her life. Meaning, crimes committed because of force. We're forcing you down and we don't want to take responsibility. We're committing crimes against you, but we want to act like it's our right. We can treat you like shit, and it's because of you for what happens. No, you get what you reap what you sow. And if you don't want to take responsibility, that's probably because you jerk off to justice, you jerk off to terrorism, you jerk off to treason. There is a difference between a contradiction and double standard, and because we don't have laws for parents to make you legally qualified to be a parent in the eyes of the law, that means many parents cross that line into terrorism that they want to say is their right. No, it's not your right. You're a fucking worthless piece of shit terrorist, and you deserve a lot of stuff. But, crimes committed. How hard has communication become? Relationships, education become for them. Their emotions in everyday life are also important. Who they want to be and who they want to be with versus what everyone else wants to try to create for them, aka meaning have they forcibly had to degrade socially, sexually, economically, behaviorally, academically, rights, your legal rights, marriage, perverted, privacy, perverted. We're going to attack you. We're going to act like we're going to take this because you're this, even though we did this because we want to do this. Vital due to ruthlessness and shows the true quality of life for the victim. Number 4, wherever the collaboration tries to create, whether violence, degrade sexually, or crimes in general, it does not matter if the action was done or she showed control. The attacker will be punished by law for the instigation or manipulation of the victim and the victim helped. The violence may be instantaneous, like a breaking point they intentionally instigated, or it may be time delayed to further cover their tracks. Crimes these people can create, which is a perversion of rights and laws and an obstruction of justice. It's attempted treason to make limited power unlimited to suit your needs. You have a disregard for this person's life, and you just want them to be framed as this label instead of getting the truth out. You want to look at facts that a terrorist creates, but a terrorist doesn't want you to know the truth, and the truth is they wanted you to do this. It could be murder. It could be suicide. It could be terror. It could be rape. It could be general crimes. It could be you being framed and end up cold-bloodedly murdered. It could be character assassinated, defamed on media, such as news or psychiatry fraud, community, family, society, for the framing to cover their crimes against the victim. Oh, we're doing this to you, but you degraded because of what we did, so we're going to label you and say you're this mental illness instead of investigate. We don't have standards for parents. So don't tell me you know. You don't know jack shit. You don't know jack shit, you stupid fuck. They could create pedophilia, homosexuality, buying prostitutes, incest, taboo or weird sexual practices, porn slowly and surely degrading because of the attacks. No real social or sex life. Time will ensure they get what they wanted, and the victim degrades more and more and more. Degrading to the point, it's just continual. How did they damage you sexually? Well, isolation, targeting you in specific ways, in a way because of how they degrade you. You are a person, and based off your gender means you want some things and have basic natural requirements. If they are taken, you will adapt, meaning you may develop, you could develop sex addiction due to things missing fundamentally in your life. They're giving you scurvy behaviorally, emotionally, psychologically, intellectually, academically. There is no economical life. They dominated you from the ages of 0 to 18. They want you to fail at life. And terrorists might say that, a beggar can't be a chooser. Wow. Here's a problem. I'm not a beggar. You want me to be. Predestination is to pervert justice, and psychiatry is to pervert, degrade the individual and his or her future. To prevent predestination, we need to establish behavioral laws and enforce them in schools by making sure teachers are psychologically, behaviorally, emotionally, and morally fit to require teachers to teach students right and wrong behavior, enforce good behavior because it is childish and poor character. Can just be a person not raised properly. Teachers will educate students throughout childhood about how to be independent and thrive after high school. Multiple things will be taught: education, character, and independency after high school, positive body language, mental strength to prevent others from conducting basic psychological warfare, promote character, value, virtues, and morals. The field of psychiatry is sadly a joke. They cannot prove something and often do not care to. Mental illness is something born with, not created by other people. If people create problems in a person's life, they should be creating prison time for themselves, period. There's a big difference in a mental illness, which is something born with, like bipolar disorder, ADHD, etc. But mental illness is something inherently there. It is not created. Mental health is a problem created by abuse, neglect, collaboration, or a bad environment. Doctors act oblivious to the fact many things can be created and not naturally there. Children are a target due to vulnerability, and because of this, polygraphs should be administered to family and community as to the behavior toward the victim and legal assistance for the victim. But this is much more complicated due to the fact children that are a target of this may at the time not think of everything, especially because their life is what they were born into. A polygraph should not be by the victim's suggestions or words, but a generalized polygraph to ensure the victim, who is horribly taken advantage of and unaware of the full scope, gets justice. And this should not be a choice of the victim or the hospital, but forced. After reaching a certain age, like 9, this could be a generalized safety net given to every child, which may seem unconstitutional, but is because people abuse their privileges, and a child should not be held down. Children who are sent to a mental institution, so it is done and the child can relax, but the child may be conditioned to be afraid of the mental doctors, or afraid because they are alone and not able to get justice. People said black slaves that ran away had a mental disorder for wanting to be free. It was called drapetomania. And the Nazis used it. Psychiatry is used to bypass what should be an automatic legal proceeding, which is with an investigation. They try to bypass the judicial system. They want limited power to be unlimited power to suit their needs. They want to pervert justice. They want to pervert what treason and terrorism is. They want to make it abstract. And they kill the person's credibility by labeling the victim with something not naturally there but created externally. It is unprofessional for you to speak about your job once you have left the building, and unprofessional for any authority to character assassinate and speak of their job outside an investigation, which, if asked people questions what was asked, if not to be brought up again, or legal repercussions may occur. Because it may be state terrorism by behavioral problems that will hurt one's doing its reputation, may need an investigation. Truth mandatory and polygraphs tests by teachers, authorities, family, and the accused. The FBI recently had a big Trump-Russia collusion, which was a lie and dragged on because they can abuse their authority. A victim of predestination will be helped in ways affected emotionally, psychologically, behaviorally, socially, intellectually, academically, sexually, economically. Even if that means witness protection or a new nation. And compensated with $1 million if the person was caught and found a victim of predestination before the age of 7. $5 million if caught between the ages before the ages of 14. $15 to $25 million if the person is found between the ages of 15 and 24. And if you are a victim of predestination, you will receive $50 million to a person found after the age of 25. This is not a handout. This is a serious offense that is to fight terrorism and treasonous actions toward any civilian at a vulnerable age. The truth will be found out, and if you thought you could make a mockery of the law, you are wrong. All money given to those under the age of 18 in a predestination trial will not be able to access it, nor any parent or guardian until the age of 18. How do you punish predestination? That is tricky, because it obviously starts somewhere, and its origins are the first priority to understand. Everyone else may be tricked, or this or that, but even that has limits. There are certain things that cannot be done, and damage that will not be undone, and the attackers are the ones you will pay for that. And the attackers are the only ones you will pay for that dearly. Predestination is visionary. It will better the nation and the world if made into a law to protect the children and the perversion of your rights. How does one better the world? One nation setting a standard, then raising it, behaviorally, socially, legally, morally, emotionally, etc. Then other nations following suit, because they see the results and the prosperity, loyalty is attained by good things, not fear, not death. Abraham Lincoln said, "A nation divided amongst itself cannot stand." And I believe he got that from the Holy Bible. We have a chance to beat evil, terrorism, tyranny, but only by action and inspiration. Truth, concrete facts, not silence. Predestination victims may leave their home country because they feel they have no choice, but only with justice. At first, predestination will only get the originators and the most severe aggressors. However, after one generation, meaning 18 years, everyone will be held to a high standard of conduct and will be punished for lack of care, empathy, and regard for life. All crimes the predestination victim did are to be acquitted unless she committed terrorism or murder before getting justice in the court of law. In which case, if the attacker was found a victim of predestination plot, she will receive 10 to 20 years in prison if terrorism was involved, and 5 years in prison if it was murder, and helped in any way possible to recover for either. This is only if he did not get justice and was found a victim of predestination. This can be altered due to factors that will not be. This can be altered to the factors that will be found out. Now, I know. Let's see. The reason no person predestinated will receive death is if an action was committed before getting justice is because it was a cold-blooded murder to kill a person others wanted to die, suffer, and do bad things. Why are you predestinating a person down? Why are you attacking and forcing a person down? You want them to do bad things, so don't be mad when they do it. You know, it's kind of like Martin Luther King. Who killed him? A terrorist. No, they don't tell you that. But who killed him? A white man. Is he a terrorist because he's white? No. He's a terrorist because he killed Martin Luther King. Why did he kill Martin Luther King? Because he was a racist and he hated niggers. Okay. So he's a terrorist because he had a disregard for life and he wanted that nigger dead. I guess he wasn't doing anything stupid enough to get in trouble, so I guess we're going to have to end it. He's not going to do what we want him to do. We'll just end it. He's a terrorist. But you also have to think, was he raised to be a terrorist? Was he raised to hate black people? Yeah, he was. So who's the real terrorist? The piss poor fucking nation. The misuse of psychiatry includes diagnosis, detention, and treatment for the use of obstructing the human rights of individuals and or groups in society. It is to know what doctors want and to say. It is to know what doctors want a person to say and try to create that person to say it, knowing that there's not going to be a investigation, there's not going to be a competent trial. It's a collaboration against this person, and we want this person to say it. Now, once predestination becomes law and the media is changed for the better and schools are held to a high standard, parents have to follow a standard legally to be qualified as a parent. Because nowadays people have kids and, oh, I'm a parent! But they're not held to a standard, so yeah, you're a parent. That's a joke. Predestination will be caught in the early stages and stopped. And once becoming law, anyone who feels a victim of it to be brought down in life can speak up. But it is important that the teachers look for signs and do something because the child is a child. It is a vulnerable time for he or she, and they are being attacked. They are being asked to do something that will change their life, and even though they may be a victim of it, it doesn't mean that's still not a scary thing to do. It is the nation's job to reverse damage if able, and to make it better for the victim, because predestination has to do with children. They should be educated on it in school. Any person who commits murder, suicide, a person who is murdered, who degrades sexually, terror, will receive a mandatory predestination investigation. And if they are a victim of predestination, the attackers may receive the punishment the victim of predestination committed, because they may have had a disregard for his or her life and may have completely been responsible for that action committed, but wants and expects no responsibility. Truth detection is the key here, with good mandatory questions before the specifics. Now, I don't care if, oh, we attacked him, but we wanted him to do this. I didn't want him to do this. It doesn't matter if what you created isn't what you even wanted. The fact is, you're responsible for it because you attacked a child. You're going to get the fucking punishment. What would be a generalized question? These are just examples, and it should be more as well, and the most important questions you can think of, because it can make the biggest impact in the behavior of the world. The attackers, predestinating a person, want time to be the killing blow for the victim, while they walk free. This is just an example. The real generalized questions could be 150. It could be 500 general questions before the specifics, if it needs to be. Family, immediate overseers in schools, students, teachers, general mandatory questions before the specifics of the individuals, other questions relevant to whatever case is going on at the time. You know, it could be, are you in any way trying to intentionally degrade or manipulate the behavior of blank to stand out in society? Is psychological abuse intentionally conducted on blank? Is group psychological abuse intentionally conducted on blank? Are you trying to intentionally deprive blank of education by neglect or treating him, her, lesser than they are capable of? Are you intentionally targeting blank socially to make them act a certain way? It doesn't matter if you want to create this detrimental side effect of by the abuse and neglect, and you created this detrimental side effect. Are you intentionally trying to pervert blank to be a lesser version of themselves, psychologically, behaviorally, socially, sexually, economically, emotionally? Are any labels forced upon the individual, like blank is a homosexual, terrorist, pedophile, druggie, mental illness, without a doctor diagnosing, etc.? Are you intentionally flipping the script on blank and act like you are not entirely responsible? Are you trying to make statistics on blank so he or she will be delegitimized? Are you and others actively trying to commit entrapment of the victim? Where and who does this originate from? Is it state terrorism? Is blank a disposable commodity and treated inhumanely? Are you intentionally demoralizing blank from women by tearing blank down and forming double standards? What was the intentions with blank? As in, what do you want he, she to commit or to be brought down to by the extreme abuse and neglect? Was or is there a slanderous smear campaign against blank, and were you involved in it? Was and is there a whisper campaign against blank since a kid trying to avoid detection? Was or is group psychological abuse conducted on blank, and why? Was or is gaslighting performed on blank, as in manipulation through persistent denial, misdirection, contradiction, and lying to destabilize and delegitimize the target? Are you pulling out teeth to get away with heinous crimes against blank, or make he, she try to get just as hard because you force derogatory things on his or her life, like conspiracy theories, or one personalized for him or her, so no one takes he or she seriously? Did you attack blank since a child so it would be hard for blank to achieve justice, and by extension, his or her life back that you and or others wanted stripped from he or she? Are you intentionally trying to frame blank by saying things randomly, things derogatory or degrading, indirectly, directly, and getting others to play along, trying to frame by conditioning the victim with a coldly calculated plan? If blank is a boy, are you trying to strip him from the ability to provide, to be a provider and protector of a woman when he or she grows up, because you want him to die alone, outside of any marriage? These questions will not be targeting, but prevent targeting. You have nothing to fear as long as you have nothing to hide. As in intent, in actions only. You are either guilty of doing this intentionally to cause harm, or you did not. It only becomes an international issue if it concerns the government. It would not be something to sweat over. Not everyone has the same ability to be there for their kids as often. But if you are being abusive and trying to take advantage of justice, your kid or the field of psychiatry, you will be punished. Further, people who may not have got justice in time may be suicide, a person murdered, or prison at a young age. The victim will be seen as a prisoner of war, and an atrocity has been committed, where the polygraphs will again be administered to see if it was intentional by others. This will strongly discourage the behavior, stop it, and make the world slowly better. This valiantly fights crime, terrorism, and ensures that there will never be another minority. The victims of this should be compensated according to the damages. And the later in life, the more damages that might not be able to be reversed as easily. And just how alone they really are. Possible relocated under witness protection, or in extreme cases, possibly adopted to another nation that would help them due to control. The victim will be helped emotionally, behaviorally, psychologically, and socially, sexually, etc. The attackers will face the full scope, the full force of justice, and know they are horribly overstepping themselves. And because we don't have standards for parents, parents aren't in check. Equality is equality. We are all equal, but not in other endowments. All equal meaning you control you, not others. And as for other endowments, well, that means the family you're born in. how well off economically they are, who you are as a person, your intelligence, behavior, character, attractiveness, not for others to say and limit you, but who you are as a person and how you choose to live life. These people act ridiculous, wanting to force derogatory things on you. They make you pull out teeth in communication. They make it very difficult, which is never an intellectual conversation. Laws and rights are twisted and perverted to suit others' needs, and I'm sorry, but you deserve prison if that's you. Predestination is to uproot the aiding and abetting, accomplices and accessories of terrorism and treason, and trying to create crimes forced upon a target, which makes the attackers guilty and the victim may be horribly suffering in plain view, but you're too stupid to ask a question. And that's something you don't hear on the news, is it? You hear of terrorism, you sure as hell don't hear of aiding and abetting, accomplice and accessory to why this person did this. You don't hear this person was optionless. You don't hear a lot of stuff. But we went on a PowerPoint about terrorism created, didn't we? Yes, we did. For the individuals who committed, for the individuals who were murdered, who were murdered or committed suicide because they were unable to attain justice or someone silenced the predestinated victim on his way to get justice. If the person murdered or committed suicide was found a victim of predestination by a mandatory investigation, the victim will be seen as a prisoner of war, a refugee, a victim of the terrible T's, a Holocaust victim, a slave. A crime against humanity has been committed, and if the victim is dead, the attackers will face severe legal problems and life sentences in a maximum security prison. Predestination is a type of warfare that uses a spear. Imagine metaphorically you are a child from as young as you can remember until current. You have to walk a line others paid for you. Surrounding you are men and women who have spears. They will poke, they will deprive you of nutrients the mind, soul, and body need and want. These people are sadistic and really, really bad, and they are nothing like how you act. But scared and vulnerable, these people will plant evidence or try to create it. Predestination? Ha! That's impossible. No, it's not, but may be to the naive. For example, predicting the future could be done with mathematics and computer simulation, formula, algorithm. You don't think your movement is predictable? Come on, guys. Your movement is predictable. Do you have a job? Government knows you have a job. Do you go to the store and buy groceries? They know you do. Do you buy gas? They know you do. Do you have a credit card? They know you do. Your actions are predictable. We are creatures of habit, and whether you recognize it or not, you have a schedule. The result doesn't and if you control media, family, and community, you essentially control the future of a victim who may not be able to get justice. Predestination doesn't have to be predicting the future to be a simple explanation. It is for the appalling individuals who attack. The result doesn't matter as long as you suffer, are forced in bad situations, and incriminated, premeditatedly, and alone. We will make you look discredited by your actions with assumptions we want and choose. We do not care about the truth. You will not get a trial. The key is to enforce behavioral laws in schools and to make teachers pass psychological exams to make sure they are fit for the job of raising a competent future generation. And the media would face these laws as well to start show values, virtues, morals, and character. The media is degrading, and it is for the attacked civilian a way to further their degrading with mimicry. It is crucial to make an example of the attackers. And help the victim, which shows the attacker their place. Otherwise, Nat Turner twists and turns in his grave for you not getting a simple picture. Terrorism creates terrorism, corrupts, attacks the pure like heat transfers to that which is cold. The fact is, the world is not bad, but they are not raised right. No one seems to care. Martin Luther King said, "Darkness cannot drive out darkness, only the light can. Hate cannot drive out hate, only love can do that." And one of my favorites, Voltaire, said, "Every man is guilty of all the good he did not do." The behavioral laws, by enforcing them, we as a world can take cancerous people who control others' lives and out them to prison. We can stop terrorism by improving quality of life. They want to kill me and make me do it to myself. If you think it is a choice and not force, then you are an idiot. It is a destruction. It is the destruction of justice. The judicial branch is one of the three most powerful branches of government. It is responsible single-handedly for stopping terrorism, treason domestically. Without the truth, without justice for all, you are guilty and democracy has fallen. The victims proven of predestination may not have all the truth revealed to them by authorities to protect them emotionally, psychologically, socially, and behaviorally. But that will not affect justice, and the victim will be protected, but watched to ensure it doesn't happen again to them. If things are withheld from the victim in court, it will be a bad sign for the attackers, and will be a reason for a more severe punishment to the heinous crimes committed against the victim. And furthermore, the victims of predestination will not know the fate judicially of their aggressors. Why? Because it will hurt the victim emotionally and psychologically. Being infuriated as to what the attackers did is one thing, but to be kind and gentle and to be forced in the middle of an atrocious actions others are committing because of a flawed system, the victim just needs compensation, help, and protection, as in a new identity and a safe place to make home. Wickedness hurts people. When will you understand this? No, not just in one area, but the most important ones: emotionally, socially, psychologically, behaviorally, morally. Basically, bad people need to be made an example of in court and show that the victim is protected as they should be. The attackers want to harshly punish people on top of what they've already done. This is offensive, shocking, disgraceful, and hardly justice. To commit extreme psychological and emotional damage, extreme depression, extreme isolation from those the victim wants to be with and forced to be with those he doesn't, to degrade sexually because of time wearing the victim down, abuse, neglect, psychological warfare, the list goes on and on, must be things important to a court if created and done to the victim. The Constitution of the United States of America allocates different power to three groups: legislative, executive, and judicial. And they are bound to the Constitution to respect their limits of their power and not act above the law or grab more by assistance. This is my life. This in my life has been violated. People want to get me in legal trouble. They want to act like they had nothing to do with it. It's not their responsibility. Since my childhood, forcing me down, and I refuse to go on any longer. I demand justice, and the judge does not know best if he is intentionally not given accurate information, or does not care, assuming the trial gets to the judge at all. We need judicial activism by the government and people, so abuse is not unpunished, and we do not have to worry about the next minority, because there will not be another abused and neglected minority. This is much larger than one person. By doing nothing, you are responsible for terrorism. This is an everyday fight that needs addressing on a cellular level. Democracy is the wisest form of government because its strength comes from the separation of powers. It is to fight tyranny and injustice, and not embrace it. A nation under God is what it defines itself under. Our founding fathers understood that tyranny comes from excess liberty. We have freedom, not anarchy by civilians. We have laws and rights, not absolute by government. A flaw in national security is a lack of concrete in everything abstract. For example, one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter. It is to say, I can do whatever I want, and if you disagree with me, you must be a terrorist. It is quite simply the abuse of power, conditioning, and blurring twisting of words. It is to flip the script on the victims. But even if a victim, you should not commit atrocities like they are. God punishes all in time, but you should try to make a change that the world desperately needs. And if predestinated, then get your life back that was stripped. You must fight to do it in the right ways. Expose your ideas. Try to find people who can make the change. Something be resilient. We all make mistakes, but do not let our anger get the better of us. But mind your emotions and use them to show yourself that you are telling the truth, and use them to push you forward. Any idea may change the tide. They want you to throw your life away. Why would you? That is stupid. Resist it. Let your light shine, however they try to change the color. Predestination is premeditation on steroids. They will even try to put stuff in your head by saying it throughout your life and forcing it on you to become a situational sadist, which by the name suggests that you are made by others dominating you, terroristically, a situational sadist. The majority does not rule over anything and never should. The smallest minority on earth is the individual. The person who said that was Ayn Rand. People want to pull out teeth and act like, what is morals? Therefore, the world will never beat terrorism. An example being Nat Turner was an African American slave. They were treated horribly and a severe lack of moral behavior and equality. Nat Turner fought terrorism in America. Radicalized by the things he saw in the treatment of his race, he was courageous. Though Nat Turner was one of a few people who stood up in the only way he could because he was optionless, the point is terrorism creates terrorism. They knew this, and they do not care because they will face no repercussions due to poor judicial systematics. It is a shameful way the world is ran. Even today, if we target you, I guess you're a terrorist. Don't think about taking legal action. You will lose, and we made damn sure of it. Terrorism creates terrorism. The terrible T's, tyranny, treason, torture, torment, and terrorism. And it boils down to poor government and them not caring about humanity. A country void of morals, virtues, values, and character is a nation that does not care about terrorism. Before technology, there were not as many borders or countries, just empire after empire. I want to kill the savage mentality of domination and control you arrogantly think is human nature. It is an outdated and I want no responsibility mentality, because there is no such thing as human nature, just common ignorance, unknown. Governments have tried to control and dominate with technology. Instead of trying to attain loyalty by equality, morals, values, character, ethics, and quality of life, freedom, technology brought us closer to civilization, and the governments choose poorly in how to use it. Hypothetically, take former President Barack Obama. You see a man, successful, handsome, and carries himself well, but intentionally target and degrade him in the most important years of his life, his childhood, at the age of the first 18 years, and that is psychological warfare. You think of him like this until you see him like this. But he would know. He knows he was held down premeditatedly. That should be grounds for an international court intervention to the prisoners of war, refugees of a savage nation, who would rather give the impression of being good than be situated good. 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 1. Though I speak with the tongues of men and of angels, and have not charity, I become a sounding brass or a tinkling cymbal. Without love you are nothing. To love and to be loved. 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 13. And now abideth faith, hope, and charity. These three, but the greatest of these is charity. Proverbs chapter 6, verses 16 through 19. These 6 things doth the Lord hate. Yea, 7 are an abomination unto him. A proud look, a lying tongue, and hands that shed innocent blood. An heart that deviseth wicked imaginations, feet that swift in running to mischief. A false witness that speaketh lies, and he that soweth discord among his brethren. The 38th President of the United States of America, Gerald Ford, said, "Don't find fault, find a remedy." Our Deepest Fear by Marlene Williamson. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, or fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There's nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine as children do. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It's not just in some of us, it's in everyone. And as we let our light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our fear, our presence automatically liberates others. Ephesians chapter 6. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. Personally, I think it should say mentality instead of principalities, because when I think principalities, I just think mentality. I think we're fighting an ancient mentality, an outdated mentality. Proverbs chapter 12, verse 1. Whoso loveth instruction loveth knowledge, but he that hateth reproof is brutish. Proverbs 21:2. Every way of a man is right in his own eyes, but the Lord pondereth the hearts. Now we're going to talk about the 3 wise monkeys. Look not at what is contrary to propriety. Listen not to what is contrary to propriety, and speak not what is contrary to propriety. The 3 wise monkeys, and it is perverted in America or the Western world, and it makes us a joke. People act like pulling out teeth and always difficult. These social and psychological tactics must be a legal focus. The Western world sees the 3 wise monkeys and wants to say turn a blind eye. But this is twisting wisdom, which is a good thing, and makes it trying to make it corrupt. What the 3 wise monkey really stands for is being of good mind, speech, and action. The victims of predestination. Well, the only real victim is the one predestinated. Singular. All others who were victimized by the predestinated victim may be in on it and need truth detection. And if they are innocent, the responsibility falls directly on the attackers of the predestination victim. This is about taking responsibility. Think about it. Why would you admit to murdering someone or having them do it to themselves because justice is a joke? They won't. We need truth detection. We need responsibility for our actions like predestination. Looked for and stopped early, or terrorism will happen because they are really the victims of a cold-blooded world that locked them on the outside. Ever hear the saying, a bird of feather flock together? The victims of predestination have their flock chosen for them. It's not about what the bird is. You got a duck with Eagles. You got a duck with Blue Jays. Whoever they want. Basically, metaphorically, they want to push you as close as they can to the cliffside. And when you fall, it wasn't their fault. Nothing you can do about it. A victim of predestination that tells an authority will be immediately taken from family and community and placed somewhere safe until it is proven to be a predestination or not. Otherwise, their life is in danger, and the kid would be stupid to say something if they're going to have a predestination trial and you're in the house with the people supposedly predestinating you. The problem to predestinate a person is to attack a vulnerable child. It must contain at least one of the following three: family attacks and or isolates child to premeditate their future; community, primarily schools, and or separates in order to premeditate their future; or government. The problem is the originator was found out as a priority. The longer it goes on, the more likely the attackers are going to affect other people negatively because they are being bad and allowed to do so. They're condoned. Predestination should be looked for by teachers at schools, and if it comes from family, it should be caught in early stages. Any behavior that is degrading or harmful to reputation recognized and a sign that something bigger is going on. Degrading? How would you know? Well, there's tons of ways. A child speaking very loudly might be ignored, talked over, uh, and isolated socially. They may have their family speak over them, speak continually without pause, interrupt them intentionally. So the child speaking loudly as a defense, he's adapting. Maybe trying to fight their way in a conversation that is meant to degrade the victim. The victim is trying to be heard and no one cares. Immaturity. A way to attack a child is to surround them with obnoxious and immature behavior, to not raise them. How the victim may not want to act like is to see it. They may think at times it is overbearing, but given enough time and wearing away, they will be so isolated, degraded, and desperate for communication, they'll act like the other people. Mimicry. Social psychological tactics: dumbing down, demoralizing, conditioning negatively, saying things randomly, uh, as if the victim said it. Uh, Double standards: nothing's ever good enough, it's always your fault. Making appearances. Planning situations: strip a person of rights by attacking childhood and degradability towards women or success. The attackers may say to the victim, "We always talk so good of you." I assume it is to cause confusion, but ultimately the victim hates the attackers and wants to escape. It could be to say, well, on the news, the terrorist was said to be the nicest person, and they want you to think that you're a terrorist, but they're terrorizing you and taking everything you could ever want. The attackers will be impatient toward the victim to condition them negatively. I'm going to skip down. This kind of talks about a lot of stuff. Uh, False appreciation is a thing. The victim may be simply going through the motions of life, but not truly realize it or want to realize it. They're just trying to stay positive, hope someone saves them, tries to escape it, but they can't because of the collaboration. Um, they might try to make the victim's life as unnecessarily difficult as possible. Predestination is just a higher offense of premeditation and a more severe one. As it should be, it makes a full scale investigation and tries to find all wrongdoing and the origins, which, if they are blaming the child, that is, in my opinion, not the case, and sad that they would do that and be able to get away with it. Instead of a victim trying in the dark and being confused because the attackers want them to be. They want you dumb, confused, and in the dark. But polygraphs cuts the bullshit. When was the last time you heard of premeditation? Probably murder, right? Well, that's kind of when it's too late. In my opinion, without predestination in law, injustice will not vanish. It strongly fights bad behavior and promotes a better society. The same goes for crimes against humanity. Genocide? That's, again, when it's too late. Yes, stop it immediately, but a single person being targeted should be a crime against humanity. Bad people just want to stop good things. They want to be able to cause mischief. Truth detection needs to be mandatory in the future. The attackers will have fraudulent evidence to frame the victim with whatever they need to get off with the crimes they committed against the victim. It is predestination for a reason. They want you to suffer, fail, and die. It's a collaboration. The attackers are committing a multitude of crimes against the victim and want to discredit the victim with things they intentionally created, either behaviorally, academically, emotionally, etc. Bottom line, if you do not agree with predestination, then you do not agree with justice and taking responsibility. We don't have inalienable rights because you're not fighting the perversion of people's rights. We don't have inalienable rights. You just want to say attractive words. And taking responsibility, which you have nothing to fear as long as you did nothing wrong. But more importantly, did nothing wrong with intent, malice, or sadistic intent to create bad things, to premeditate or predestinate a victim who should, by law, have freedom of choice, not forced choice. They want to pervert your choice? That's treason to democracy. Choice through grinding away and domination, the attackers will blame the child. Predestination, the action, not the law, is extremism. I do not promote or endorse terrorism or murder. That was not the reason for this being made in any way. It is to say terrorism is not simply to kill, but to try to create it in others, which makes people guilty and walk while the victim's life is destroyed utterly because of breaches in government, because of excess liberty used tyrannically, treasonously, terroristically. Predestination in law will catch the victims early in life. Try to stop it altogether, and victims not caught can attain justice by telling authorities. No excuses will stop a full-scale investigation, period. This is made to prevent the perversion and destruction of justice and restore the world. Predestination is essentially, in the easiest and purest form, is premeditating and dominating a vulnerable child. It is to control their future, relationships, success, and fall. It is to control the punishment the victim will get with mass collaboration and careful planning. Even if it is the victim doing it to themselves, which is really a person who is optionless and everything taken, so they degrade and lose themselves. The very fact the victim is predestinated is disgraceful to not only the nation but humanity for tolerating vicious acts to happen. To be heartless, cruelty, brutish, would be fought hard against. No child will be spoken down to. No child will be forced in lesser and forgotten. Predestination is a perversion of justice. It needs to be looked for. It is families, communities, and local government to target a child and input problems. Terrorism creates terrorism. Domination can create anything. The attackers cross their T's and dot their I's. Predestination was the title because it is to control many factors and maliciously, sadistically ruin a child's life and future is to more severe case or an already existing law premeditating. However, another way to look at it is reincarnation, where the child's abilities, capabilities, wants, desires, needs are thrown out the door. The child is metaphorically uh, killed, and his or her life is what the attackers want it to be. Obviously, predestination is a better title and never acceptable. It must be stopped because it is radicalism and extremism. People playing God and think attacking people is what he wants. Reincarnation should not have such a bad name. It means life revival. Predestination is a serious offense and a crime against humanity. The victims will be protected at all cost. The victims have no one, and if predestination is not made into law, terrorists run the streets, but get their victims to get all the punishment they never deserved. But the attackers did. Predestination is a counterterrorism law and is to ensure no one under from the age of 0 to 18 is starved intentionally, emotionally, psychologically, socially, sexually, behaviorally, intellectually, academically, with a metaphorical case of scurvy. Predestination in law is to prevent the perversion of your rights. This was made to stop and prevent suffering, torment, terrorism, treason, tyranny, perversion of justice, and the creation of crime. This is a stepping stone to a better and restored nation. I skipped over a lot, but that's the paper.